Okay, I'm just gonna start rolling here.
Yeah.
So thanks very much, Miss Collins, for allowing me to interview you today. Just have a few questions regarding the economy in Ireland. Pretty much just a few questions from our book for Trinity College. So thanks very much for agreeing to.
Nice to
Yeah,
do it.
yeah. No, I'm sure you're very busy, but anyway, I'll just get started here. So in the upcoming budget, in regards to social groups, classes, which do you think will be affected the most or the worst in your opinion?
Well, listen to the kite flying that's going on the last couple of weeks, and we're going to hear now for the next month. It looks like, from the government's point of view, below middle income will be targeted very
Yeah.
much so. And old age pensions with the travel pass, they're looking at changing the character of that. How, I don't know that they're going to do it, but certainly the low middle income, who have been the people who've been subjected most
Yeah,
in
of
relation
course.
to the austerity cuts over the last number of years. And it's the social classes that actually spend the most money in the economy, and that's why we in the United Left Alliance have been saying that austerity just cannot work, because it's cut more and more into people's incomes, so they have less and less to spend into the economy, into the local shops, into the hairdressers, into all that sort of good stuff in the community and that's having another impact then in losing jobs in the economy through that way as well. So they would be the main groups I think would be affected.
Yeah.
Badly affected.
Yeah. So old people and pretty much the most poverty stricken, like what?
People who need access to health, people who need access to social welfare, all that. I was talking to a CEO there recently up in Cherry Orchard Hospital. We were had campaigned against the closure of the Rome ward, which was a ward, the only public ward in the country that gave respite care to HIV sufferers. And he just said, listen, at this point in time, we've moved all the beds we can, we've reorganised, rejigged, and the whole lot. He said, the next round, it's less for less, it's not more for less, you know, and there's people in the middle incomes and low incomes that need that access to the health service,
Yeah.
and the home health have been cut as well, which is causing major problems, which will force people into hospitals as well.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a pretty brutal budget.
And in regards to social welfare in this country, do you believe it's too high or too low, and that people may take advantage of the welfare system?
I don't think it's too high. I mean, 188 job seekers is not a hell of a lot of money. Now, if you add on your children's allowance and stuff like that, that does help from the point of view of keeping your head above water. But if you look at the amount of people who've been put on the dole were mainly builders that have worked in the economy up to about 4 years ago, and they're people who were never on the dole before in their lives, and to be on the dole is just pretty bad from their point of view. They don't want to be there. It's a place they don't want to be. 188, as I said, is not a hell of a lot of money. It's then means tested after a year. It could be reduced. It's not too high, and in actual fact, with the increases that have come in relation to the massive increases in gas, in ESB, even if you want to stay in the VHI, if people have children, they want to keep in the VHI, it's becoming impossible on the dole. It's bad enough for people who are actually in work.
Yeah.
You have the working poor now, but if you're on the dole, it's €188 a week. Is
Yeah.
not very much
It's
more.
not much, I agree.
And then when
Yeah.
you see the likes of Joan Borton and Eamon Gilmore and all them in there talking about we all have to take the pain. The pain is earning €188 a week. These people, their nests are well feathered, and they don't have to worry about putting food on the table, paying their electricity bills. Most probably have their mortgages paid off. They don't have to worry about that. So I don't think the social welfare is too low. I think it should stay at that level at least.
And if you were to make any changes in social welfare, would you implement anything different?
There's not really much. There's not really much room there. You know, when you look at all the, disability allowances, they have been cut. They're talking about cutting them more, which would be a disaster to people who depend on it. They used the excuse last year when they attempted to cut the dole of the disability allowance for 16-year-olds, that parents said that it was too much money. These people depend on that money from 16 onwards for education and that. There's not too much wiggle room in social welfare. Actually, social welfare, to my mind, should be ring-fenced now, protected, because unless there's job creation, these people have no other choice but to be on the dole. It's the only place they can be.
Yeah.
And talking about, I've had to say an instance I had where a young man who had a small business lost the business because of the recession and lost his home through repossession. He's now in rented accommodation on the dole. For that person, for him to get out of that, it is a poverty trap, because you can't work. If you do work, your rental allowance is cut. So you can never sort of get out of that situation.
You're stuck there.
You're stuck
Yeah.
there, you know.
Yeah.
So unless this government put a real jobs programme into place, the social welfare should be now ring-fenced or protected for people who actually need it, you know.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that just there about the man who unfortunately lost his small business, and he's now stuck on the dole, and it'd be hard for him to get a job. My next question would be kind of in relation to that, especially in Ireland. Do you think it's possible for people such as himself to move among social classes and people such as himself to be dependent on the dole to be able to find a job and maybe move up into the middle class? Do you think it's plausible at all?
From this recession, it's going to be very, very difficult. As I said, that case it's not an extreme case neither. The only part that's probably extreme is that he filed for what's the word? It won't come to my head now.
Don't worry about it. Like this, it's like this thing will get edited.
You know,
when
you lose your home or you got repossession and that, you file for
bankruptcy.
It'll come to me.
Yeah.
But he cannot get his way out of that now. What we've been trying to do is get him onto a different scheme called RAS, which provides for the Dublin City Council will pay the landlord the rent, and on that basis then he can access work. So it's trying to get people in a position where they can actually free themselves up to be able to access work then. And then even at that, for him to get work is going to be impossible, because the work that's out there is very, very, the wages are very low, and most of them are around the minimum wage now at this stage. There's very, very few jobs actually have the average industrial wage or even higher. It was amazing when I heard the guy from the IMF, when we met them there about 2 weeks ago when the Troika came into town, and their quarterly review, they meet all the different parties and that, you said he couldn't understand how somebody on 65 grand a week, it was referring to that wife of the guard, and he couldn't, that family couldn't survive in Ireland, you know. He was saying in Belgium 65,000 is a massive wage, and the cost of living is much less, and that's the very point we made to them. Yes, the cost of living is much less in Ireland, but the cost of living is much higher than UK, Europe, etc. And people on those sort of wages, I find it difficult to survive. So just imagine what it's like for somebody on €188 a week or 240 or
of course.
€240 a week. And at the moment, the situation is that unless, as I said, it comes back to job creation, and the argument the government are using now is that governments don't create jobs, they create the economic environment to allow private sector to create the jobs. The fact of the matter is that over the last number of years, there's been a 64% strike on capital. They're not private companies are not investing in Ireland, so it's nearly a strike on capital. So where are the jobs going to come from? It's not going to come from the private sector. And it's up to government to intervene at points and say, well, listen, we have to be responsible then for creating jobs. And the United Left Alliance will be putting forward in the next week or so a programme to do that, and where you get the money from, and say this is what we need. We need a jobs programme to create about 300,000 jobs in this country through renewable energies, water pipes being fixed, all these things that you just earmark and have a 5-year plan for.
Yeah.
And in that way, that gets people back into the system of work and paying taxes off the dole. Has a huge impact all around. And
with the dole and the minimum wage, like the minimum wage is quite reasonable in relation, like compared to other countries. But do you feel like some people might not be bothered to kind of go out and seek a job when they could just sit at home and watch the Jeremy Cole show and just,
yeah, you have to create jobs that pay reasonable wages, you know. I mean, if you're on the dole at the moment and say you have a medical card, which is very, very valuable to people. It's nearly like your free healthcare service, which we should have anyway. And then you're on the dole, and you get your children's allowance maybe, and a little bit extra here and there. But at the end of the day, if you talk to many men and women, they don't want to be there. They want to be out working.
Yeah.
They want a job. They want something to go.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah.
Because there's nothing to live for if you're sitting at home. You know.
No.
And as I say, people come into our office every day in Crummer and they say, listen, we want a job. We had one guy that came in, we've been dropping into the last year, and he came in last week and he was bouncing around the place because he got a job, and he was over the moon, you know.
That's good.
And he's probably the first person in a long time that we've heard actually secured a job.
Yeah.
It's just this idea that people are sitting in the door at home because it's comfortable, and it's, you know, they don't. It's a fiction, and it's made up by the media, etc.
Yeah, of
people
course.
do want to get out and work.
Yeah.
You know, 40-year-old men, 45-year-old men, they're not used to sitting at home.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to take too much of your time, but I just have one last question for you, Miss Collins, if that's okay. It's just in regard to students and fees, such as myself as a student with high fees. We're usually forced to borrow and pay back high interest rates, as most students have low income due to like lacking of experience and such. Do you think lowering interest rates for students, or even lowering the fees, could be a possible solution in the future?
I think it's crucial. I think it's absolutely crucial to allow ordinary people from middle incomes and that into the education system. It's been one of the great developments over the last 10 years or 15 years, 20 years in this country, where when I left school in 1979, there was no real option for me to go to university. It was a no-no. You went out and you got a job. 10 years previous to that, you would have been 15 doing the same thing. And over the last 20 years, because of the access to third level education, it's been brilliant for the young people in this country.
Yeah.
So to me, where we should start from is that at the very early stages, preschool stages, that's where we start investing money into and allowing people that have education to be able to access third level education then, and it should be free. Students shouldn't have to pay for it, and that does put a burden on the economy. But I think that, you know, if the state pays for students and by educating them, and when they leave work and they go into as engineers, well-paid jobs, or even into hospitals or consultants, or there should be a payback socially to society for about 5 or 6 years of that student after they go into full-paid jobs, either to give public time to, say, work as a public nurse for 10 years and then have access if you want to go on from there. But I think there should be payback like that in relation to what then you give back to society, because society gave you your education. So I think it should be free, and it should be, you know, a sort of fall back after that then.
Yeah.
That's the way I think society should be looking at, rather than paying huge fees.
Yeah, of course.
Huge pressure. Then you go into a job and then you're probably paying back all those fees for the next 10, 15 years. And, you know,
you can never recover. I feel like you're always paying back. You're always you can never kind of get on a level playing field, because you don't have the experience to get a decent wage. Where students are waiters or bartenders at the best, like, you know.
And that just keeps you going day
That
to
just
day,
keeps
you
you
know?
going, and it doesn't even pay the fees at a stretch, like. But Miss Collins, seriously, I really appreciate you taking your time to agreeing to interview. No, that's very good. Thanks so much. Cheers.
Thanks.